Hi, I'm Justin.
Also, I hate the way my voice sounds, so if you can do whatever Photoshop does to voices, make me sound awesome.
And this is my lovely friend,
The beauty in the eyes of the beholder, and it's just about getting into the seat of being the beholder.
Hayley.
I don't think you have to be particularly perceptive. I just think you have to look up.
This podcast is mostly just her telling me stories.
If you expose yourself to the possibility that this might be really awkward, there can be something just really cool on the other side of it.
She thinks that her life and way of looking at things are
I thought I was kind of waiting on you. I thought you were getting your stuff ready. You're waiting on me?
pretty normal.
You got to edit out all the misinformation about the Amish.
Maybe you can relate
I would like a chance to re-sing the Amish Paradise.
if you want lighthearted stories
All right, you want to talk about goats?
and stream of consciousness.
I just woke up and needed some friends, and so I bought them.
Then you're gonna like the Sunny Side Up podcast.
Sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up.
So, if you're at all like me, you may feel that you're living in a world that can be a bit overwhelming and confusing at times. I'm also a huge fan of podcasts, documentaries, docudramas, stories, and of just information in general. Between all of that and the social media and news, sometimes our brains can feel like they're on overload. Hayley and I hope that this podcast can be something of an antidote to all of that. Like little jello shots of joy and distraction. None of it is too serious or really too informative. Mostly it's just two friends who have conversational chemistry talking about whatever enters the minds of relatively ADHD people. We hope you enjoy.
Tell me, recently, another kind of loop back to a story that we had last season was your journey with your dad, your biological dad where you thought he was just kind of like this crazy person who was, obviously on different, alcohol, drug type things. And so you just kind of wrote off a lot of what he said as like the ramblings of a madman. And then from the moment you started telling me about your dad, though, I've just been seeing this movie in my head of this,
Who's playing his character?
Okay, the same guy. When I find the actor.
And the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
And the Old Brother, the Bible
now
salesman.
we have to know.
He's the big guy who plays in all the movies.
Not descriptive enough for me.
I know. But somebody like him he would do perfect. I'm going to find.
Hey,
here.
Google.
Yeah, I'll have to do.
Okay, you want a legitimizing story? Is that what we're looking for?
Yes.
Yeah,
you've told me that you shared something
two
with me
of
that's
them.
crazy.
I'm going to give you two of them.
Oh, two for
one
the
of
person
them
one.
connecting immediately to the person we just discussed, right?
Okay.
Friend that I loved. So we graduate law school, and there are periods of time where he and I don't talk because he did have some drug issues, and so at certain points.
John Goodman.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Right? Big guy.
Oh my gosh. I think I did see, him as a Bible salesman.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, he could totally play the role of my dad. Absolutely.
Yeah,
you nailed it. Without knowing my dad, you know my dad. So
wow.
that
I love
could
that.
totally.
Dude, this some great screenwriter needs to
Hey,
sit
John
down.
Goodman, hit me up.
Not John Goodman.
Project
We need to get
John Goodman's agent,
we need
hit
the
me up.
script.
Okay.
We need the script written.
I can write a letter. I can write a script, right?
Oh man, this guy and his story. There's something about it.
I
why.
don't know about that. I think so many people have dysfunctional parent stories that mine would just be it's mild compared to others. Although
I think that honestly, not to be dismissive of you, I think his relationship with I do see the picture of him coming to the door naked. I think that's a funny and startling moment that needs to be in the film. But I think you're a minor character. I think it's his escapades.
Oh, sure.
Right? So we definitely, it's the classic loner guy, misunderstood guy, struggling with addiction. By the way, you've seen this character in movies. Doesn't have a good relationship with his daughter. His daughter thinks he's just an F-up, whatever. And he's rambling on about all this craziness that, of course, until long after his death. So, I got it. In the movie, yes, John Goodman plays your dad, but maybe the main character in the movie is a slightly fictionalized version of you who goes on this journey of discovering that her dad is not all crazy. He actually had some real. So maybe the main character is you, Okay. Either way.
Okay.
Moving on.
I still got to figure out who my character is because did I say Jimmy Stewart? I mean, I know that he is not available for the role, but
Yeah.
we could do it. Somebody once compared me in personality to Ellen Page in Juno.
Okay. Yeah. She's now transitioned. She's no longer Ellen anymore.
I'm trying to remember.
Interesting,
Elliot.
by the way.
Elliot.
She's Elliot. Interesting, by the way, that you have, depending on how you view, Elliot as, he, she, whatever they, I don't know the pronouns, but like you've essentially picked out two very masculine characters to play you. I think, do we need to have a further conversation on?
Jimmy Stewart is just the sweetest heart. That's all.
He is.
And so here's a question which I will have to Google later. When referring to somebody who has transitioned, if you're referring to a past role, would I refer to...
Yeah, she was a she then.
But would I use Ellen Page or would I say Elliot Page? I
have no idea.
If you're referring to a role in the past, I'm not sure
what
would feel better.
I'm the worst at all the LGBTQ alphabet stuff
at the appropriate responses.
I have very inappropriate responses probably. But I what makes sense to me is sort of common sense is back then she was Ellen and that's how I would know her. So that seems fair enough. Or you could do remember when Prince changed his name and it was like the artist formerly known as Prince.
And then it became a symbol, right?
Yeah, for a while. Yeah. I think he finally gave up on it and went back to Prince. But yeah, you could do the artist formerly known as Ellen Page, maybe. Maybe that's fair.
There's a lady on it's Law and Order, and that's who somebody has said that I look like, but I don't know what her name was.
But we've already decided from in previous conversation, we don't have to have someone who looks like you. It's just got to capture the essence. There's a personality. There's an essence. Would be a great you in so many ways would be. I
would love to know. Who's
I just thought of it. I think she's precious.
Thank you.
Dang it. What is her name?
I need to know.
And she's got kind of long dark hair. She's at least our age, probably older now. And terrible that the only thing I can think of was she was in that stupid movie with Keanu.
That's who somebody told me I look like one time, and I was
wow.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, you're overly generous.
Yeah,
I don't look like her at all. I don't.
What did she act in? Angie Harmon. Yeah, Angie Harmon.
Was she in Law and Order? I think that's what it was.
I never watched.
I don't watch
Law and Order. She's gorgeous. That's definitely very.
I thought it was a nice thing for them to say.
What was the movie about the bus that was
Sandra Bullock. Speed.
Sandra Bullock. Speed. Okay, I could kind of see a Sandra Bullock because she's kind of got that sweet, empathetic-y character. Yeah, I would pick either Sandra Bullock or someone like her. And so we got Sandra Bullock and John Goodman in the movie of Your Dad and You. I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would be fine with it being sort of from your point of view. And it's just the John Goodman, your dad scenes are just you learning about him. So there's flashbacks of what we imagine happened.
Well, and honestly, you could script this movie because you watched it happen. That whole first season of our podcast was me processing out all of those experiences and realizations. I should have been on a therapist's couch instead of in a podcast room because listening back to it, I was like, oh, sorry, apologies to the listening audience.
No.
Because that's what was happening.
I've
never talked about him that much in my life.
Yeah, good.
But to the legitimizing stories.
Yeah, legitimizing and crossover.
Yeah, okay. To begin, so the friend that passed after we graduated, and he passed the bar exam, and he moved to a really, really small town, and he, it's so difficult to be a baby lawyer. If you go in, practice by yourself, especially because how in the world are you going to recruit clients,
right,
and you don't have any experience or any way to get your name out there? And are you even going to know what to do with them if they come to you? Because law school teaches you theories. It doesn't really teach you practical application of skills.
Fair.
I have a whole lot of things to say about that, but we'll save it. Anyhow, he passes the bar exam. He gets a couple of clients trickling in, and he emailed me one day and said, hey, you have mentioned that your dad was involved in some, shady situations and quote-unquote investigations that involve some satanic rituals under the bridge. And I knew... I want want to say one of those, like Dateline or one of those kind of like Sunday evening type shows had done a special on this, whatever's going on under the bridge. So it had been talked about before. And he said, I just remember you saying that your dad had done some of his quote unquote investigative work about that. But I have a client who's come to my office and has had some experiences there. I think she was raped under the bridge at a satanic ritual. Wow. Do you think I could talk to your dad about it? And I was like, this sounds like the exact thing you could talk to my dad about.
Wait, and was your dad still alive at this point?
Yeah, this was the early aughts.
The early aughts,
it's my new vocabulary word. I'm going to wear it out. I just never heard it before. But, he was still alive. So a friend emails him, gets in touch with him, however it was, and he messaged me back and says, hey, I talked to your dad, and I understand. And I said, I'm sorry, he's crazy, isn't he? And he said, well, maybe, but he said, but not the way you think. He's crazy like a fox. And I said, what does that mean? He said, he presented himself like slurring, couldn't get his faculties together, whatever. But then whenever he heard that I had a legitimate question and that I was believing what he was saying, he immediately began to speak clearly and brought the facts and the details and helped me discuss and really got involved in helping me put together when he realized what I was doing. He's like, he was faking it. And I was like,
that son of a biscuit.
Yeah, because honest to goodness, I would almost rather you be legitimately crazy than be faking crazy the whole time I know you, because he never legitimately sobered himself up for me. Like, that was rude, but also I wasn't
okay. But to defend the old man, maybe he spent a lot of his life, at the other end of the bottle, and that was something he was painfully aware of, was how to be that. And he had learned how to use that as a protection of like, oh, the tax man's calling me. Oh, the whoever
I'm
person
crazy.
harassing me. I'm crazy, which nobody wants to deal with crazy.
Sure.
And so let's leave some room for that. He legitimately lived a chunk of his life as a boozed out, drugged out guy.
That part was true. Yeah. His ability to turn it on and sober up when he wanted to.
That's cool, though. It's a superpower.
True, but hurtful to those of us for whom he did not choose to flip the switch. But later in his life, he did flip the switch for me. So I'm gonna focus on that and say thanks for those last year or two.
For the memories.
Yeah, right. Like when I don't think I ever mentioned one time it was like Christmas and he was really excited that we were speaking again. And so he was like, I want to have a big family Christmas and I want to go to this overpriced restaurant. And he spent his entire oil. He had gotten an oil lease and he spent the entire check on gifts for me and the other sibling that would talk to him and my two daughters. And it was the happiest he'd ever been. He needed that money because he was on a fixed income and he really could have used it, but he blew it on big old Christmas presents. And it was just kind of precious because he was so happy to have that opportunity. So good stories in the midst of that. But this week, maybe it was last week, in the news, Jackson, Mississippi. Ain't never in there for a good reason.
Breaking news.
Yeah, usually it's because they don't even have potable water.
Yeah.
You hear me whisper because
I know.
Make sure I'm
well, then you're like, is it portable? Is it potable? Like, what kind of water? Is it portable water?
They ain't even got water to brush your teeth with safely.
Yeah.
But this time it was in the news because they had discovered like 215 bodies in an unmarked grave on some prison grounds. And guess what?
Can you rotate that microphone just a little?
That's
what? Yeah, perfect. You're beautiful. Good job.
Lovely. Sorry, I touch
good.
Things when I get excited. Yeah. This is what he had told me that the retired U.S. Attorney General had contacted him about investigating, and then the civil rights worker whose brother had been murdered during the Freedom Summer, and he continued to stay involved in researching civil rights matters in this area, and they were working with him to collect information, and he was doing investigative work for them regarding, and I was like, oh yeah, what about? And he's like, the murders that are happening in Mississippi prison grounds, and people are being buried there and their family members don't even know. And I was like, okay. And then nothing ever comes of it, so I assume it's more
crazy talk,
fantasy, yeah. And no, it's in the news this week. They uncovered the
like hundreds of bodies,
graves.
right?
Like 215 is the number that came to mind, but that it might be a different number. I would have to look it up to be completely certain, but and charging the family members $250 or so to get a death certificate. Like it feels so icky from this side, the information that we have so far, because we don't have the full story or what was really happening. But the precursor story to this that kind of led up to this one in the fall, a mother's son didn't come home that evening, so she reports him as a missing person, and they say, no, we haven't heard anything. And then time goes by, he never comes home, and then they find out a couple months later that his body was in the pauper's field where a cop in Jackson had hit him with his car and killed him the night that his mother reported him missing. He had his ID in his pocket. They knew who he was. There wasn't a question. They could have reached out. They could have answered this mother's questions when she reported a missing person, and they didn't. And they lied about it. And they turned his body over, and then after a period of time, it would be buried as an unclaimed body in this pauper's field. I think that somehow that horrible situation led to
broke this thing open.
Led to them looking further into well, who else have we buried, and so now they're seeing this and they're saying stuff. Anyway, it seems to be related to what my dad was talking about around 2008, 2009, 2010. Whether it's the same, it may not be, but apparently there was enough legitimate issues then to raise some questions that we're just now confirming.
Well, and so I think you think you told me something the other night that was really interesting. So when you think of your dad being hired to investigate these, it now seems like real crimes that sound like made up. Like you're like, oh, conspiracy theory. What do you think was happening there? Like who were those people that were hiring him, and what was their motivation for hiring your dad? Who's obviously not, whatever else is going on. He's not dumb, but he's not your super put together former ex-military, ex-cop, whatever.
No, he had no credentials whatsoever to have been sought out. And it was either Aaron or it might have been Tim. So either my husband or the friend that had contacted my dad to try to get more information about it, one of them suggested, they're like, oh, I think that a legitimate person did contact him, did ask him to do this research. I don't think he was making any of that up. I don't think that they were the legitimate officers of the state that he thought they were, and we suspect that maybe he was and this is conspiracy theorist brain engaged.
I love it. Let's go there, though.
This is just what we think.
Yeah.
We think he was hired because they're like, oh, here's a guy who fancies himself to be a private investigator. Let's ask him to look into this, and whatever information he comes up with, we will know is a loose end that we need to clean up so that whenever real investigations happen, they won't be able to connect those dots. So we feel like he was the guy that they hired to show us where the weak spots are.
And then clean up around the edges. Oh,
yeah.
That is just so interesting to me.
Yeah. Like maybe not. It's just that he knew too much to have made it all up. There just was never any legitimizing, like not a pay stub, not a state retirement or anything that would show that he actually worked for a state official in any actual capacity. But yeah, who knows? But the thing that he said was happening back then is in the news.
Well, and so
this
far,
week, so if nothing else,
to go back. Yeah, I have to go back and listen to those episodes. But a lot of the stuff that he kind of mentioned about, because I remember there was the police killing people, and there was,
and those things really did happen.
That's what I'm
and
saying.
Also, our county, an investigator in our local law enforcement, recently said, I'm going to open some of these cold cases and start looking at it. If any of you have any information about this, please come forward. And some of them are the two murders that he had looked into and investigated and felt like he had a lot of information about. When he got his information together and then he was told to leave it in this certain place in this type of envelope, like, I don't remember, under a park bench in an envelope or whatever, and the guy who came to pick it up was the bad guy that he was trying to inform about. And he realized that who he'd been communicating with the whole time was the guy he was trying to rat out, and all of his work, recorded cassettes and all of his interviews and all of his work product, he had just handed it to the guy that he was trying to rat out.
I don't remember that piece. That's crazy.
I wonder, maybe I didn't remember to say that part, but that was so frustrating to him. Yeah. I feel like a lot
Did he have a copy of any of that stuff, or did he?
No, this would have been like at the time whenever Yeah, probably not. And so that frustration.
Yeah.
No wonder he had substance abuse issues. Who wouldn't be bashing your head against the wall at that point?
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah. And it was all against local law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, the local law enforcement was connected to, just some of the seediest people in the county who are still around. Like a girl ran into me in the grocery store a couple of months ago and was like, your dad wasn't wrong about any of that because my mom dated that guy, and here's all the backstory. And then she starts spitting facts right there in front of the grocery store. I was like, ma'am, I am just here to get some cookies. But stood right there and unpacked all of it. It was fascinating because she knows, and she's like, he's not crazy. She's like, he and I are probably the only two that know, and I had to move out of state.
Hold on. Can you tell this story? Whatever this is sounds fascinating.
It's pretty much the story. I was going into the grocery store to get some cookies, and I see an old high school friend, and we start chatting, and she had moved away. She had moved to like the state of Washington or something, and had come back, and I'm asking about that, and she says, I had to leave because they knew that I knew some of those details.
About what?
Those murders or political connections or whatever all this stuff is that's out there that my dad was always talking about. It's like it's like, I don't know, it's this big scary thing out there, like a fog that's going to get us all. But she knew about it, and so she left the state and went to Washington, and I don't know, she ended up in a women's homeless shelter for a brief minute before she came. She has a really fascinating story too. But anyway, she's sitting there and she's like, I know your dad's sounding crazy because they like to present that he's crazy so no one would believe what he was saying because it implicates all of them. Right. But she's like, it's not wrong. And at the same time, the local new sheriff decided to reopen some of these cold cases and said, if anybody has any information, please come forward. But man, nobody wants to talk about that because it's really dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow.
Do you want to move to a small town? It's fun.
No, I'm good. I've done that before. I've been there, done that. Got a t-shirt.
Hello, lovely friends. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And it would mean the world if you would tell other people about this podcast and maybe even spam your social media accounts with just how much you're enjoying it. If you are, of course. Also, commenting and rating us on whatever platform you're downloading or streaming from is incredibly helpful to a little startup podcast like this one. On the other hand, if you are dissatisfied with your listening experience, please leave all of that hate on someone else's podcast. Just maybe to confuse them a little bit, right? But most of all, we hope you keep looking up and looking for the sunny side of life.